Hello, 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 and good evening to everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the first edition. Tonight we'll be talking about, or it's going to be a continuation of what we talked about last time, with the hints and strategies I gave last time on characterization. But this time, we're going to put those strategies into play. We're going to actually use them and see how they work, if they work, and what better way to use those strategies than to reinvent one of the biggest characterization blunders cinematic history, Anakin Skywalker. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? And we are back with the first edition. I am your humble host, Literature Devil. Tonight, last time we talked about different strategies on how to create a character, which basically boiled down to have an idea of a character in mind and then work backwards from there. What that means is have the idea of your character in mind and have the traits you want them to have, and then work backwards. So if you want to have, for example, a really tough, strong brawler sort of person, brawler sort of hero, then you'd break down what kinds of traits you want him to have. What would a brawler type of hero have? Would he be stern? Would he be fun-loving? Would he be a workout freak? It all depends on what you want and what the story demands. But then, once you pick out the necessary traits, you then work backwards. So you pick out a few traits, and then you figure out why would this person have this trait? Why would it have developed in this way? So, for example, if he is an alcoholic, it could have been you work backwards from there, and it could have been maybe his wife died. Maybe it said his wife died. Maybe instead of that, maybe it's genetic. Maybe his father or mother was an alcoholic, and it was genetic. It could have been. It all depends on what you want to happen. Well, so when we go to a character like Darth Vader, for instance, and then we compare him to another character like Anakin Skywalker, they seem very disjointed. They seem very different. Even though Anakin Skywalker was supposed to be the character who would eventually turn into Darth Vader, they ended up being very different characters. Especially if you watch the original trilogy, and if you go back and watch the prequel trilogy, they seem like two totally different people. They don't seem like the same person at all. And what it seems to me is that they wrote Darth Vader one way, of course, and then they went back and had gotten Anakin Skywalker and written him a completely different way. They George Lucas or the one of the creators had different ideas for young Anakin than they had for Darth Vader, and that's because I think Darth Vader probably had evolved from just a big bad soldier that the a right hand, a sledgehammer for the Empire, and then turned into something else, something far more important. Flying Turret 208, happy to see you here. Hold up, this at 11 o'clock. Yeah, I had put the time and I forgot to change it to the usual central time. So it was, I think, probably an hour ahead until I changed it back. So yeah, but it is 8 central time. So I changed it back. But that's all right. It's all right. We'll still make do. Still make do. So when you look at a character like Darth Vader, what is he? He is stern. He is no nonsense. He's all business. And for whatever reason, he whatever happened. I mean, there's a lot. Anakin obviously went through a lot between his hero days and his Darth Vader days, but you would think he would remain somewhat the same, but he didn't. Because when you see Darth Vader, you see nothing of the prequels Anakin Skywalker in there. It's really strange. It's really different. So George Lucas seemed to have had two totally different ideas in terms of what kind of character these two people would be. And Darth Vader, he is no nonsense. He is that guy who walks in, takes care of business, and leaves. Anakin Skywalker is more impulsive. He's brash. He is the guy who just rushes into danger, fights all the bad guys, saves the princess, and leaves. And he remains kind of whiny throughout the entire prequel trilogy. I mean, he's a kid. He's whiny. Second movie, he's a teenager, still whiny. And even as an adult, he's still sort of whiny for whatever reason. And it remains that way. And then it's really strange when he gets into the Darth Vader outfit because he looks like Darth Vader, but he doesn't act like Darth Vader, not even in the slightest. So what I had in mind was that let's go ahead and use the strategies that we talked about last time and see what kind of character we would get if we took Darth Vader as a starting point and then worked backwards. So, in order to begin this, what kind of character is Darth Vader? Well, the original Darth Vader from the original trilogy, like I said, he's just no nonsense. He's not really a man of speech. He's just more of a man of action. Just walks in, destroys things, and leaves. That's all. That's his job. And he is the right hand of the Emperor, pretty much. And what else does he have? Well, he's highly talented in the Force. He is highly confident. He still is an excellent pilot, despite all of his injuries. But he's no longer brash. He's no longer impulsive. He's very methodical and calculating. If I were to guess, to me, Darth Vader would have been, even in his Anakin Skywalker days, kind of a stern warrior. I mean, he's characterized in the first movie as this wild-eyed adventurer, which kind of sticks with how Anakin Skywalker was kind of portrayed in the prequel. But I would suggest that he can be a wild-eyed adventurer while also being kind of reserved. He just because he's an adventurer doesn't mean he's going to be this guy with a big personality. Or maybe he changed a little bit, but this change wouldn't happen after he suddenly became Darth Vader. It would probably happen during his days in the Clone Wars, similar to how Luke Skywalker changed over the course of the Galactic Civil War. So if you recall, Luke Skywalker started out as this wild-eyed, thirst for adventure young farm boy. He wanted to jump off of Tatooine and head out into the galaxy and make his own name. And then the Empire Strikes Back, he's more reserved, he's more experienced, he's able to control his impulses. He's more professional. He more or less knows what he's doing. And then in the third movie, Return of the Jedi, he has changed from the wild-eyed, whiny farm boy into a very methodical, very calculating Jedi. So even if even if Anakin Skywalker remained his wild-eyed self and then trained entered the Order of the Jedi, trained as a Jedi, and then fought in the Clone Wars. By the end of the Clone Wars, he should have been already he should have evolved into the methodical type. You could see elements of Darth Vader already. and it probably would have been brought on by the war. So you can actually see how he would have been seduced by the dark side. So, I mean, this we're going to totally disregard the prequel portrayal of Anakin Skywalker, and we're going to rebuild Darth Vader from the ground up. Axel Hussar, Anakin is far more furious and temperamental than Darth Vader. Very, very, very true. At least in the prequel, he is. But the characterization that we're going to go with, I believe, is going to be probably one like Luke Skywalker. It's as Uncle Owen said, Luke Skywalker has much of his father in him, so he kind of Luke Skywalker's wild-eyed, adventurous self probably closely mimics or mirrors what the young Anakin Skywalker would have done. Someone who just wanted to join some cause and fight for right, so to speak. Here, Flying Turret 208, I keep jumping to Anakin's backstory and going, Darth Vader should also be emotionally wounded, like the fan series Vader. It's very possible. In fact, the story of Darth Vader should be a tragedy, and because of the Clone Wars, element, it very well could be. So, especially since he starts off as this, wild-eyed adventurer with big dreams and wanting for more, wanting for something more. The Disney princess syndrome. Like, so imagine this. We take Darth Vader, this guy who is just willing to do anything. He's willing to do anything to get the job done. He has cast off his old loyalties. He has killed pretty much the part of himself that remained human. And he is now in a life support suit for some reason. He's also a good pilot, a fantastic warrior, very skilled in the Force. And I believe he was canonically the pupil of Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan's friend. So he is the type of person who was probably reliable. He was the hero type, probably very heroic back in the Clone War days. So if we imagine young Anakin Skywalker meeting Obi-Wan. Maybe he's older than where we meet him in the prequel. And if you recall, it seems like Obi-Wan was the one who convinced Anakin Skywalker to go off on some silly crusade, I think that's what they call it. So Obi-Wan is the one he is the Gandalf. He comes in and he whisks you off to adventure. That's the role of Obi-Wan. So he played this role for Anakin, presumably. So he took Obi-Wan took Anakin under his wing, and then they went off. And apparently, Obi-Wan trained Anakin Skywalker in the skills and knowledge of the Force and the skills of a Jedi. And then somewhere along the lines, the Clone Wars happened. Because this could have happened at any time during his Jedi training, but it would seem like, being the same wild-eyed adventurer type as Luke is, that Anakin would have been spurned by the Clone Wars. Maybe the Clone Wars were already going on, and he's a teenager, he's probably at Luke's age, and he's wanting to go out and make a difference because he is talented, he's full of vigor, he's full of energy, he wants to get out there and fight for the right side, fight and champion a cause. And then Obi-Wan picks up on this, and he says, all right, I can help you out. And becomes a mentor. Becomes a mentor to Anakin Skywalker. And then they become friends. And they probably become friends after they enter the Clone Wars. They train. And or maybe Anakin Skywalker wants to get in because the Clone Wars haven't started yet. But he can see them. You can see the conflict arising, like in the prequels. You could see the frictions rising, and then that's why he wants to get started. It doesn't really matter in the long run. For whatever reason, Anakin Skywalker in this continuity will be spurned into action because either he can see the conflict brewing, or he can, or the Clone Wars are already raging, and who knows how long those Clone Wars lasted. Especially if they're infamous, they might have lasted a decade or more. It's very possible, especially in a war on a galactic scale. It could have lasted a decade or more. Who knows? So maybe in this case, maybe now that Obi-Wan has him under his skin, under his wing, and they are training together, maybe it takes 5 years. He does a 5 year training exercise. Trying 5 year. Well, he spends 5 years training. Let's put it like that. And all around him, the wars are raging. Everything is going on. Let's see. Let's see. The board enthusiast. Hey, what did I miss? Flying turret 28. Not much for Anakin. Okay, so remember, in case anyone missed it, this is sort of like a smaller version of when we rewrote The Force Awakens. But instead of doing the entire movie, we're going to just rewrite Anakin Skywalker so that he can better fit the character that we know as Darth Vader. And we're going to do so by using the strategies that we used last time, or that we discussed last time. Setting up what you want and then working backwards to see how we got there. So this is easy because we already have Darth Vader and people already know who he is and people already like him. And we're playing on the fact that Anakin Skywalker, as portrayed in the prequels, doesn't really seem to fit Darth Vader, the character of Darth Vader. So that's what we're doing right now, is rewriting Darth Vader, rewriting the origin of Darth Vader. So Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker presumably enter the Clone Wars, and Anakin Skywalker is still this optimistic young hero type. He is, he's up for, he fights with honor, he saves people, he protects the helpless, the usual roster of traits that a hero would have. And he has to have these traits because otherwise Obi-Wan probably wouldn't have taken him in. And he could probably see great potential in Anakin Skywalker. And then said, okay, come on in, I'll teach you. And then they enter the war, and as is fitting with the mentor picking out his mentee, Anakin lives up to it. He is a great hero. He is responsible for turning tides everywhere. But the thing is, if anyone has ever seen or ever read All Quiet on the Western Front, I could imagine it being something like that. So, basically, during World War I, you had the people going, you had the schoolboys going to class, and the teachers would often, hype up the romanticism of war, and they would hype it up so much that when the boys actually were supposed to go off to war, they would be excited. They'd be very excited. They would say, "I'm going to go off to war and become the greatest soldier ever." So, war was a romantic idea, and they would go off chasing this romantic idea. And then there's a lot of occasions, I believe, that they would start to hate their teachers, because once they actually entered the war and realized the hard way that war is hell, that it's not romantic in the least, their innocence is broken, and they're stuck fighting a war that they're stuck with the reality of war. And the romantic idea they had of war have just long been shattered, and they feel like it was a trick. It was a horrible, terrible, awful trick that the teachers had played on them, kind of tricking them into being glad that they're being sent off to war instead of horrified, instead of teaching them the true horrors of war. And that's what you kind of get in All Quiet on the Western Front. It's been a long time since I've read that book, but I remember that much. And also, it's really good. I suggest you read it. it's a really good insight on how the culture was and how the states were and what was expected of you during that time. It's a very good insight into that era of time. But to me, that's what would seem like what might have happened to Anakin Skywalker. He enters the war. He's really good at what he does. He's having fun. He's still living up that romantic ideal of war. Just rushing in, conquering bad guys, beating enemies, saving people, protecting the weak and innocent. And then at one point, something happens. And I think it's supposed to be something, it's probably going to be something that crushes his innocence, that takes a sledgehammer to his innocence. And to me, this would stem from his presumption that war is black and white, that he is fighting for the good guys and fighting against the bad guys. And whatever the Clone Wars might be in this continuity it can be pretty much anything. It could be maybe two armies of clones fighting against one another. It could be the same thing as last time where it's clones fighting droids. It could be pretty much anything. In the long run, it really doesn't matter. Because according to what we're talking about right now, which has to be relative to the character of Anakin Skywalker and eventually Darth Vader, what happens is that at some point he realizes that it's not black and white, that it's actually gray and black morality. That's what we have here. At one point, for some reason, Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan are back to back. They're fighting in the wars. They're fighting against the Sith, whatever the Sith might be in this continuity. And Anakin Skywalker is just fighting people. He's rescuing people. He is leading the charge on major operations, and he's doing a good job. He is fighting the good fight, slaying the bad guys, and championing equality and freedom and all that stuff. All the things that you think a hero of his caliber would champion. Let's see, Flying Turret 208. Let's see here. What if it was already raging and say that Anakin lost his parents from the wars? That could be it. That could be exactly what motivated Anakin Skywalker. Maybe he lost his parents. The Clone Wars were raging, and a war on a galactic scale would have colossal damages. It would have colossal collateral damages on even the most remote worlds. So yeah, that could be why he wanted to go off so much. Maybe Anakin Skywalker lost his parents, and Obi-Wan took him in out of kindness, and then Obi-Wan managed to see over the years, that Anakin Skywalker was skilled, very skilled. Or maybe he lost his parents, and this wouldn't make more sense if Uncle Owen was actually his brother. As apart from what we got now, I'm not really sure who Owen is. I've never figured that out. I don't pay attention, I guess, close enough. But I had assumed when I watched the first trilogy that Owen was actually Anakin's brother. That was never mentioned again. I guess it's kind of like a Raditz scenario. But maybe Anakin and Owen were sent to go live. Maybe they lived somewhere else besides Tatooine. And then they were sent off to live with their own uncle or aunt or whatever. Kind of like I was going to say a Braveheart, but no, that wouldn't work. But what if they sent to live with their own aunt or uncle on Tatooine, and then Obi-Wan just happened to be stationed there. He is a Jedi Knight. He is he kind of, I don't know, he is maybe a friend of the aunt or uncle, and he, for some reason, maybe he's retired or something. Maybe he's in hiding again. Maybe he's a sleeper agent. Who knows? But for whatever reason, Obi-Wan had retired. Maybe he became disillusioned, and then he met Anakin. And of course, Owen doesn't really like Obi-Wan. He thinks he's a kind of a weirdo. Remember, Obi-Wan is a lot younger, so maybe Obi-Wan, maybe he might be a knight, maybe not a master himself yet. and then over the years, the kind of he and Anakin sort of get closer. They kind of become friends to each other. Maybe they're not that far apart in age, and then the rest is history. They become friends. Obi-Wan recognizes the great potential in Anakin, and that's it. Or maybe they go to a city. They go to a place. Is that Anakin and Owen's aunt and uncle live in a place where there's a Jedi temple. I mean, imagine, wouldn't it be interesting if they kind of became like I don't know, if they kind of met while Obi-Wan was taking classes, and Obi-Wan was like maybe he was an activist sort of person where he's just they're not, the Jedi Order wasn't allowing him to go off and fight yet, and Anakin, he meets Anakin on his way back from somewhere, and they kind of become friends by chance. And I don't know. This could be all kinds of interesting scenarios where they meet and become friends, and then later on, Owen says, that I don't want to deal with all this, and it's Owen who goes off and goes to Tatooine because he wants to just stay away from it all. He wants to live a quiet life away from all the things that his brother loved, war and adventure. He wants to live a quiet life. And now I've just, honestly, now I just want a story about Owen. I want a series about Uncle Owen. See what he was all about, because you don't really get to know him much after he's killed off in the first movie at the very beginning. Let's see here, Stephen Fitzgerald. The core of Anakin/Vader's character is that tyranny is better than chaos, i.e., it kills fewer people. And that is true. I mean, that's part of what it seems like to me. I'm not really sure, but I think I've heard anyway that Darth Vader is like lawful. He sticks to a code. He acts according to a code. He is not. He doesn't kill indiscriminately, but he does do so if he needs to. Let's see here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. He does kill if he needs to. So he only does things. Darth Vader does evil. He's always ready to do evil things that we see as evil and cruel, but only if he needs to. So if he needs to destroy an entire rebel fleet, he'll do that. But if he can have some use out of them, he won't. He doesn't just kill for pleasure. He kind of goes out and does things that are conducive to moving their plans and interests along. The board enthusiast, what do you think of Princess Amidala and her role in Anakin's arc? I didn't really like that one because not because of he fell to evil because of out of love or whatever. It's because it was so horribly mishandled. It could have been good, but George Lucas stayed with two-dimensional, Romeo and Juliet style dialogue and Romeo and Juliet style interaction. And Romeo and Juliet by itself is an excellent play. Not my favorite, but it's an excellent play altogether. And it stems from this phenomenon that seems to happen with remakes, that when you have a great movie, when a director comes in with a great movie, people love it, and then someone else tries to remake it, it loses a lot of its essence, and people don't tend to like it. Even they don't like it as much. They just don't tend to like it. I think I remember there was an instance where Psycho was remade, and it was remade to such a degree that it was remade frame by frame, but people didn't like it as much. It's because you lose a lot of the essence. The director is there behind the scenes doing his own thing, and you lose the essence even if you just copy and paste. So Anakin has to have a romance. I mean, Luke was born. Luke is the son of a prostitute or something, but Luke was born. So yeah, he would have to have a romance, but it would probably be better if it were better handled, not just two-dimensional Romeo and, Juliet nonsense. The poor enthusiast, the romance in the prequels is still better than Twilight. I I would probably have to say yes. It is. I'm not even sure if there is romance in Twilight. It's just uh, a girl falls in love with a vampire and he gets creepy and she likes it for some reason. That's what I've heard, and I managed to stay away from those books. They are fan fiction. They are fan fiction. I wouldn't, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel hired Stephanie Meyer to write the next line of comics, because her writing is fan fiction level. It's superior fan fiction level, and she actually would be better at writing fan fiction level stories than most of the writers they have there. But it's still fan fiction level. But so we have Anakin Skywalker. He's friends with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan eventually takes him under his wing, and they train. And because I think it's explicitly stated that Obi-Wan did was the teacher of Anakin. So they go off together. They go off to fight the war. They're both ready for battle. Obi-Wan is the one who pulls Anakin along, even though Anakin wants to go. Obi-Wan is the one that finally detaches him. You know how Luke wanted to go. He wanted to go off and have his own adventure, but as soon as Obi-Wan presented him with an avenue for adventure, all of a sudden Luke was like, "No, I have work to do. I don't want to go. You know, Uncle Owen's gonna be mad at me, all that stuff." So that is an actual human phenomenon. Okay, we have dreams. There's so many occasions where we have very big dreams, very important dreams, and then we're faced with a a a way to actually achieve that dream, and then we pull back. It becomes scary, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard famous writers express that sort of feeling, where they come up and they finally are able to achieve their dream, and then they say, you know what, I don't want to do this. This is too scary, because it's kind of scary. Success can be, you know, it's not this. It's not the success. This is your big chance. This is your dream, and if you fail, your dream dies. I mean, if you had this dream for all of your life, and then it turns up a failure, what do you have left? And some people think, some people feel as if, well, it's better to hold on to this dream. It's better to hold on to this possibility than take the plunge and have it fail and lose that forever. You feel like you lose a big part of yourself. So that's what Luke did. He wanted to go off on an adventure, and then Obi-Wan handed him a way to go off on an adventure, and then all of a sudden he was reluctant. So even if he wanted to, he wanted to pull away, which is a very human reaction. So I would assume Anakin probably reacted the same way. Obi-Wan wanted to go off and fight the Clone Wars, and Anakin wanted to also, but was reluctant. And Obi-Wan said, "Okay, it's going to be really great. We're going to go off and have adventures. We're going to save people. We're going to be heroes. We're going to be heroes, Anakin. Let's go." And so they did. They went off. Anakin was trained by Obi-Wan, and they went off. They eventually went off and fought in the Clone Wars. And as I mentioned before, they probably did a good job. Anakin was probably the hero, slayed the bad guys, saved the good guys. But he probably joined at a very young age, kind of in the age probably around how Luke Skywalker joined, very young. And but in this case, Anakin was deluded by the dream, by the romance. He was deluded by the fact that this was a black and white fight, that he was the good guy, they were the bad guys. And then something happens to break that innocence. I see, Stephen Fitzgerald, in the original Clone Wars comics, Anakin had to watch Jedi and clone trooper friends die horribly, which fueled his fear and rage and motivated him to seek power to prevent more painful deaths, which feed the lost innocence narrative we spoke of earlier. Yeah, I think it would be twofold. And I think over the course, maybe they finally are handed a major defeat, and Anakin had befriended a bunch of soldiers, and maybe he befriended a bunch of soldiers, and they all died in this defeat. Maybe the first major defeat, and in that first major defeat, there was no cheering, there was no pats on the back, there was no victory parties to attend. All he did was watch his friends die. All these friends he made, suddenly it would go from Saturday morning cartoon to major blockbuster movie with all kinds of guts and entrails. Be that jarring, and it would be that it would shatter that innocence, and then from there, it would jump. It would just jump into something else, because from there, he's down the rabbit hole. Suddenly, he sees that it isn't black and white, that it isn't this game that they're playing anymore, and that image of all of his friends dying stays with him. And what happens after that is that he discovers that it isn't black and white. It isn't that there are scoundrels and opportunists on the side he's fighting for. He's fighting for the Republic, and he thinks the Republic is good. But then he figures out that the loss was only caused because the general was disloyal to one of the politicians, was personally disloyal to one of the politicians, or one of the generals was dangerous, or a political enemy, was becoming too powerful, becoming too maybe Anakin and the general were becoming too powerful for their own good, too influential, and there was a cabal of Republic senators or whatever who conspired with the enemy, gave him all the details, basically committed treason, so that Anakin and the general would lose that fight, and they would be wiped off the map, and they would be removed from play as dangerous political tools. That the Anakin and the general couldn't have the clout anymore. They would no longer be political threats, and so Anakin would learn from there that this isn't going to work. That all these people have all this power, and there's no one to keep them really in control. So we get to start to see that he is starting to favor control, because what had happened was all of his friends died in one battle because of some ambitious senators wanted them to die. Here, the board enthusiast, would you still agree with the decision to start Anakin as a child, or would you prefer him to embark on an adventure at Luke's age instead? What about his prophecy of being the chosen one? Personally, I would get rid of the chosen one prophecy. I dislike prophecies. I mean, if you want to use a prophecy, do so at your own risk. But I would stay away from ever using a chosen one prophecy. So I would not keep that at all. I would advise to throw that out unless you're going to do something interesting with it. Like if it's going to be a satire, you're going to turn it around and have the chosen one be someone else besides the main character or something. But I would just throw out the chosen one thing. And then I'm not really sure about the age of Anakin and this continuity. It all depends on how young you want him to be when he first meets Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan, of course, has to train him for a few years before he's able to go out and fight. Baku Winthrow, if we keep the prophecy, it would give him a sense of pride, or rather that he is correct how he wants to go with the war. I would still get rid of the prophecy element and have him wanting to go out into war because, one, his parents were killed during the Clone Wars by some collateral damage, and two, he is full of adventure like Luke was. I would personally go with that. But if we go back to him figuring out that there are some corrupt and ambitious politicians on the side of the Republic, then we start to see that he starts to change, that he is no longer the innocent hero, smiling and being dashing and all that stuff. He is now more of a war-hardened veteran. Now he sees that corruption can occur even for the people he fights for. So what happens after that is that maybe he starts to entertain the idea of there being a one person in control, a more dominating force keeping all this together, because he could probably see that this whole Clone Wars battle occurred because maybe the Republic, in his eyes, was too weak, too lenient. And now they're at war, and that eventually caused his parents' death and so many other deaths, that he starts to see that maybe this is not the right way. Maybe fighting for the Republic is not the correct way. Baku Winthrow, like with the portrayal, he wants help from the Jedi, go and ruthlessly cut down the turncoats. The Council doesn't go with it. And then now that could work. That could work. Maybe he still fights for the Republic. He's still hanging on to his loyalty to the Republic and to the Jedi Order. And the Jedi Order in this scenario still does side with the Republic. But he's become more ruthless. He's starting to become more of that stoic, calculating man that we would see once he becomes Darth Vader. So in this case, maybe at one point he discovers the identity of the traitors, and he goes to the council and says, "Hey, I want to get rid of these traitors," because we get to see that ruthlessness start to emerge. The ruthlessness he would become known for as Darth Vader. And maybe he would approach the council and say, "Hey, I found these people who betrayed us. Here's a list of names of the senators who caused the deaths of an entire army. We should deliver justice." And then the Jedi probably come out and say, they were wrong, but it is not time to cause conflict within our own ranks. And suddenly, everywhere Anakin turns, no one is willing to pull the trigger because these senators are powerful. They are very influential senators. And of course they are. They're willing to conspire behind closed doors to wipe out their own people so they can keep or gain more power. So of course they're going to be very powerful senators. And the removal would cause a lot of damage to their own side. Axel Hussar, I think the Chosen One prophecy could work for Anakin as some sort of twist, the general formula, but if we didn't know that Anakin will end up as Darth Vader. I guess it could be if you use it in a more tragic sense, which of course it will be. Maybe during the Clone Wars, sometimes during the Clone Wars, there was talk of a Chosen One who would bring balance to the Force. And then over the course of it, we eventually learned that Anakin is the said Chosen One, that he fits all the criteria. And that would encourage him even more. And then it would be very ironic. It would be deliciously, narratively ironic if they come to the conclusion that Anakin is the Chosen One right before he's handed his very first defeat. And then he starts to see the corruption. He starts to take notice of all the corruption, and it goes downhill from there. So more time passes. He becomes more stoic. He becomes more calculating. He becomes kind of less of that wild-eyed sensation that he had, the optimist part of himself. It's no longer there. It kind of dies down. And now, he's more on the side of, now more of a war-hardened veteran. And he's starting to develop a ruthless nature when it comes to getting things done. So instead of jumping in like Earl Flynn and giving out a laugh as he duels and swashbuckles with other Sith or bad guys, he walks in and he takes another situation, and he is very methodical now because he saw all of his friends die, and now he wants to fight in a manner that will yield the least amount of casualties on his side. Now this starts off fine at first, and then he goes deeper and deeper into making plays, coming up with strategies that are deemed less and less honorable. He starts to, consider assassinations, betrayals. Not really betrayals, but assassinations. Maybe things that would be considered dark, ruthless, and methods that would not be used by a hero of Anakin Skywalker's caliber. Let's see. Flying through 208. You done sewing? Oh, now you can interact. Awesome. Baku Windthrow. I think that even after the council rejects him, Anakin keeps trying to sway at least Obi-Wan to see his view. Exactly. That's exactly what my thoughts exactly on that one. Because remember, Obi-Wan and Anakin are still friends. He might be becoming disillusioned with the Republic, the war, and the Jedi Council, but Obi-Wan and he are still friends. So after he's rejected by the Council, he probably turns to Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan turns him away. Or maybe Obi-Wan tries to calm him down. Maybe that's why Anakin says, "Okay, I won't confront the senators just yet." And then maybe a couple of more years pass. He changes into this colder, more methodical version of himself. Then maybe he figures out that the same senators are at it again. And maybe this time he goes off and kills the senators. Or maybe it's Palpatine. Maybe Palpatine steps in and Obi-Wan Obi-Wan is his angel, Palpatine is the devil, one on each shoulder. Obi-Wan says, hold off, is not the correct thing to do. Then later on he meets Palpatine, and Palpatine kind of manipulates him like he does in the prequel. It's, okay, look. I mean, and maybe this is how he's seduced into the dark side. Remember, he wasn't. Obi-Wan said he was seduced. Maybe this is the way it happens. Let's see. Baku Windthrow, but because of this, it causes a wedge between them, since Obi-Wan doesn't want his people to turn dark. It's exactly where we're going. Exactly. Flying Turret 208, perhaps when he finds out that the senators won't be removed, starts working to assassinate the senators to show his dark side. For enthusiasts, can you remind me what Anakin's core motivations are? Well, in this case, it starts off with Anakin's same motivations. Also, Anakin's in this continuity, Anakin's parents were killed off due to the collateral damage of the Clone Wars. Plus, Anakin's initial thirst for adventure. So those two combined are his initial motivations. And then, of course, he befriended people, and then things happened, and then his motivations became to win the war and to punish the senators. Because remember, Anakin remains lawful. Let's see here. Flying Turret 208, Anakin started with adventure, gained the hero complex, and now wants to purify those around him. And that would be enhanced if we did keep the Chosen One prophecy. Stephen Fitzgerald. As for Anakin and Padme, I always imagined that she would be put in a position where she had to undermine him because he plans to go too far, and that's a betrayal finally breaks him. More enthusiast thinks. Flying Turret 208. I was wondering if Palpatine was going to come in or not. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and have Palpatine because Palpatine is in the original trilogy, and he is the master of Darth Vader. So yeah, I think it'd be prudent of us to add in Palpatine. And I think this might be the turning point. Maybe at this point he is involved with Padme or his romantic interest, and he goes to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan says, "Don't do it." He goes to Padme. Padme says, "Don't kill the senators." And And then he meets Palpatine. But Palpatine says, maybe you should. It's just. It's justice. I mean, after all your friends were killed. They received no justice. Isn't this why you're fighting in the first place? To bring justice to people who cannot have it? Isn't this why you're fighting, Mr. Anakin? Because you're here trying to protect the rights of those who cannot protect their own rights. You're here to protect the innocent. Isn't that why you're here? And so that goes with Anakin. He keeps thinking about it, and he says, "That's right." And this drives him so far. Maybe he feels betrayed by Obi-Wan and Padme, and that might be his downfall. Is the deaths of these senators. Now that he's become disillusioned with everyone. Let's see here. The board enthusiast. I feel like the backstory of his parents being killed and his thirst for adventure kind of clash. Would you suppose that the burden of his parents dying would cause him to have to grow up too fast, as compared to the innocent notion of thirst for adventure? It could be a combination of the two. I mean, his parents died. He was sent off with his brother Owen to go live with his parents, whether his aunt and uncle, or something like that. Some other family member on a world with a Jedi temple where he meets Obi-Wan, and he wants to go off and fight in the Clone Wars one day, to avenge his parents or to stop the killing. Plus, he has that drive for adventure. He's unlike Owen in comparison to Owen, who doesn't really care. He says, "Okay, yeah, it was bad. Our parents died, but I don't want to go fight in the war." Owen would say that he wants to stay and live a normal, quiet life. Anakin is the one who wants to jump out into adventure. Let's see. Flying Turbo 208, at a young enough age, you won't comprehend death, so won't care. Say 5. I'd say 14. He'd realize, but be past it. And the board enthusiast. We have the element of being mature too fast with carefree innocence clashing together. I mean, it could still be a mixture of both if it's played correctly. We have the carefree innocence of adventure being driven by the death of family. So yeah, the death of family. He would be angry at that. That might be what instills his initial seed of anger that would eventually turn him completely. But then that's could be mixed and pushed by the need to go off to an adventure. Palpatine. Palpatine suggestion. Let's see here. Palpatine, Flying Turret 208. Perhaps Palpatine is believed to be a Jedi Master and is also Emperor. So that way, the Jedi has a reason to come in on the Republic rather than Confederation. It could be that Palpatine is still the leader of the Republic. That's how Anakin meets him, and they become trustworthy friends. But then at the moment where the senators come into play, maybe he lets it go, and he finds out they're trying to conspire again. And this time, Anakin wants to wipe them out because they're hindering the Republic's war efforts by quite a bit. Stephen Fitzgerald, perhaps Palpatine conflates justice with revenge. That's seductive because it makes the argument that killing the senators both feels good and is good. It's exactly what he does. It's exactly what he's going to end up doing. He's going to play on Anakin's need to be a hero, his need to protect, his need for, to just be the hero. That's what he's been doing for all this time. That's what he wanted to be since he was a kid. That's what Palpatine plays on. That's what Palpatine does. He says, these senators were responsible for the deaths of all of your friends, and they're almost responsible for your death. And no one is doing a thing about it. Not the Jedi, not Obi-Wan, not Padme, and definitely not the Republic. That's what happens. Palpatine says, go and get him. That's everyone else is just thinking of themselves, or thinking of they're being corrupted, their vision is being clouded. And that's how that works. And perhaps that's what happens. Anakin takes his lightsaber and he goes and delivers his own form of justice. He goes off and kills these men, these senators. And then now he's a wanted criminal. And that's exactly what Palpatine wants to happen. The great hero of the Republic has now murdered several of the most powerful most powerful senators in the Republic. So now he has taken the step, and he cannot come back. So maybe Anakin he realizes what he's done. Maybe he feels an immense amount of guilt. Then Palpatine keeps doing his trick, keeps pushing him. He's pushing him, and until Anakin feels betrayed by Obi-Wan. He convinces Anakin that Obi-Wan has been his enemy his whole time. Why? Because of the All Quiet on the Western Front scenario we have. Obi-Wan was the one who brought Anakin into the war. He was the one who said it would be an adventure, it would be great, it would be him fighting bad guys to help good guys. But then Anakin feels like he lied, that Obi-Wan lied to him, which is why you get the same amount of malice, the hatred that you see Anakin has, or Darth Vader has, for Obi-Wan in that first movie. Now, when Vader confronts Obi-Wan for all those years, the reason why he can bring himself to kill Obi-Wan, why he went from "you're my friend" to "I want to kill you," is because at that moment Vader believes that Obi-Wan had tricked him for his own purposes into joining a war under false pretenses. Let's see. Flying Turret 208. One issue I heard was the Jedi joined the Republic even though ideals lined up more with the Confederation. Hence the idea of having Palpatine being as a Jedi and Emperor. Baku Winthrop. I've always liked the idea that Palpatine should be a friend to the Jedi and almost like an ambassador to them in Republic circles. The Board Enthusiast. Realizing my need to brush up on Star Wars lore since I haven't watched the movies since age 12. I've only watched the movies recently because I needed to watch the movies for my next video. My next video being why Rey is a Mary Sue and Luke Skywalker is not. I'm pretty sure no one will overreact to. Probably be filled with measured and concise comments. Let's see. Flying Turbo to 8 plus people should be able to sense out the Force wheels. That is true. That is a good. That's true that Force users can sense other Force users. Stephen Fitzgerald. Anakin has to remain anonymous in the murders, though, because no one connects him to Vader until after the Galactic Civil War. So he has to publicly die a hero. Now that's a good point. So Palpatine would probably be a friend to the Jedi because the Jedi can obviously sense that Palpatine has a considerable amount of Force. He is strong in the Force, they would say. But yeah, that is also a good point that no one but Obi-Wan and a few other close people know that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker. Maybe he kills the senators, and then he gets away with it. Palpatine helps him get away with it. But now he's already crossed the line. You know, it's kind of like how, have you ever seen Gotham? They try to get Jim Gordon to shoot the Penguin so that they have something on him so they can trust him. It's kind of like that. Except Jim Gordon got out of it by tricking the gangsters. Anakin fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Let's see here. A flying turret to 8, clears throat, switches pitch. As little practice as an alto. How dare you saying Lucas is not a Mary Sue and Ray is you big. I'm ready for that one. I'm ready. I have my glass ready so I can collect all the tears because I intend to leave them with nothing. No, I know all the arguments and I intend to leave them with absolutely nothing other than outrage, of course. They will always have that. I can't take that away from them. Jeepers, an interesting final nail in the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin could be Obi-Wan's relationship with Satine and the Jedi Code, but I missed the first 45 minutes, so if it conflicts. Let's see. Baku Winthrow, the need for anonymity in the assassinations could be the birthplace of Vader name. That's a pretty good suggestion. Yeah, that's maybe that's where they come up with it. Instead of Palpatine coming in and say, I will call you Lord Vader, cause it is my favorite snack brand or something. He just comes out with Lord Vader out of nowhere. Maybe that's the name Vader would have more meaning here. Would have more meaning. And he'd become kind of like a dark vigilante, sort of. And that's what would happen. So when at the scene of the deaths of the senators, they would leave the mark of Darth Vader, and then suddenly Darth Vader's name would become infamous. And then more of this would happen. The corruption. It became like Light from Death Note. He's there stamping out corruption wherever he finds it, but it's his form of corruption. But as he stamps it out, he himself becomes more and more corrupt. He falls further and further into the dark side. So his good intentions pave his own way to hell. But of course, Obi-Wan knows that it's Anakin, because Obi-Wan knows Anakin, and he knows that this is what Anakin would do. Only someone of Anakin's skill could pull this off, and he had a personal grudge with those senators. But because Obi-Wan is still Anakin's friend, Obi-Wan is still Anakin's friend. He doesn't report Anakin to any sort of authority. Instead, he tries to talk him down. And it's probably from some volcano planet or whatever, some lava planet. I don't know, somewhere where he gets damaged. Let's see. So yeah, that's what happens. That's how Vader is born, out of the vigilante actions of Anakin Skywalker behind the scenes, stamping out corruption in the Republic Senate, stamping out corruption in the army, stamping out corruption wherever he sees it. Let's see here. So that is a great idea. That is a fantastic suggestion. The board enthusiast. I will call you Vader because it's my favorite snack brand. I never wondered. I never figured out why he came up with the name Vader. Because the way it happens in the prequels is that he just names him Vader for whatever reason. It's never explained where the name came from. Flying 208, perhaps the name Vader is taken based on his translation being father, the whole name being father of death. Could be. Let's see. So it could mean something like they would say that, or maybe it could be that the other people name him Vader. It's kind of like they've really seen Hannibal, the movies, not the TV show, but the movies. Specifically Red Dragon, where the Tooth Fairy, he hates the name Tooth Fairy because that's the one they gave him. Maybe that's how Vader came up. It's like Vader was maybe, I don't know if he is a legend. Maybe Vader was a legend, kind of like a myth. Kind of like urban legends, but a Republic urban legend, kind of the sort of but an urban legend. So like how they have, if you do bad, if you do this, if you do X, Y, and Z, then this ghost or whatever will come and take your life or something. You'll be haunted, you'll be cursed, whatever the matter might be. So that's where the name came from. Everyone knew that these senators were corrupt. They just couldn't do anything about it. And the name Vader came from a ghost, a specter. Because I've heard Darth Vader being referred to or being compared to the ghost of Hamlet's father in the play Hamlet. The Vader is the name Vader comes from a specter that will kill you or haunt you or curse you if you betray your own. If you know what the Furies are, they're from Greek mythology. They are the entities who follow you around for the rest of your life, driving you mad should you stab your own family member in the back, or kill your own family member. So they could be the same idea here. Vader is their word for fury. And their word for Vader, a Vader in this context would be a mythologically speaking, of course, would be an entity that follows you around and delivers justice upon you or vengeance upon you should you betray an ally. And that's where this comes from. So maybe they see this. The senators who were corrupt are killed by someone unknown, by some vigilante, and the people around it, the people who witnessed these murders, nicknamed the murderer Vader. Let's see here. And Vader could, of course, mean father of death, which is why they die. That's what explains the death part. Let's see here. Stephen Fitzgerald. Amy Padme finds out about the murders because Palpatine lets her. So she tells Obi-Wan, forcing Obi-Wan to confront Anakin and forcing Anakin into rage. She wounds Padme. Nick Beers, Imperial officer. You don't have a last name. You didn't know your father, so let's ironically name you. Yeah, that was really dumb. That's really fantastically stupid. What they did in Solo. How come his name just couldn't be Han Solo? They keep doing this. They keep taking iconic names or names that should be iconic, and then handing them to characters for no significant reason. Like Rogue One, they weren't named Rogue One to the end of that movie because they just thought off the name on top of their head. It wasn't. I thought the name Rogue One was going to be like their unit. The Agent Rogue One, like kind of like 007. Agent Rogue One, you're going to go off and steal the plans of the Death Star. But no, that wasn't the case at all. The whole movie is based on a name they thought up at the top of their head at the very end of it. And then they have Han Solo. Oh, you don't have any people? We'll just call you Solo. Shoot that guard in the face. No. Why can't his name just be Han Solo? Why does it have to be stupid, given to him for a stupid reason? No reason is better than a stupid reason. Especially for a name as iconic as that. Anyway. Stephen Fitzgerald, Vader could be a mythical figure in galactic culture, like the Grim Reaper or Slender Man figure. Yeah, pretty something like that. This comes out when, like the Greek Fury. It comes out when you betray your own. It comes out to deliver justice or vengeance, whatever the case might be. Baku Winthor, I was thinking about that too. He would be a point of no return where he aligns himself with Palpatine. Could also be a turning point in the war. He probably becomes to Anakin at this point probably comes to align his thoughts and his mind more and more with Palpatine. And the suggestion from before, where Padme figures it out, because Padme probably knows more about Anakin than anyone else does. So Padme probably figures this out, but instead of going to the authorities, she goes to Obi-Wan. That maybe Obi-Wan can talk down Anakin. Remember, this becomes an epidemic. Anakin becomes kind of an epidemic who goes around stepping out corruption wherever he sees it. He still has that remnant of that childlike black and white morality. It's kind of like what Light had in Death Note. So Obi-Wan confronts Anakin somewhere dangerous or whatever. If you remember, in this continuity, at this point, Anakin has probably been corrupted by Palpatine to the point where he believes Obi-Wan had betrayed him. Obi-Wan had tricked him, in a sense of the World War I teachers had tricked the schoolboys. That he is, Obi-Wan had tricked him for his own selfish reasons. And then, so Anakin will not listen to reason in this context. He's just full of rage, a rage that has been growing inside of him ever since his parents died all those years ago. And having come face to face finally, everything being out in the open, finally coming face to face with his friend, or the person he thought was his friend, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who now he thinks has tricked him into joining the war. Axel Hussar, Rogue One is a movie about one line in the scroll text in the beginning of A New Hope. Yep, pretty much. I mean, they could have made it great, but they didn't. Flying Turret 208, on a good reason. How about him having been a local smuggler and got labeled Solo, and tacked it onto his name as Han Solo, as a way of showing off his accomplishment. That would have been a way better reason. That he's wearing the name Solo in defiance of the Empire. That would be so Han. Yeah, I'm Han Solo because you caught me. And I was alone. You called me Solo, so now I'm wearing that. Now I'm wearing that moniker to mock the Empire. Manera-chan, so did you read the Star Wars comic? Pissed off the SJW's Vader killed the nurse because he was stalking him. I didn't read it, but I did listen to Diversity in Comics' cover of it, and yeah, I put that. I could sort of took that notion from that comic. I'm kind of going to put it into Dr. Alpha #2. Should I get there? I already have the story planned out for the Dr. Alpha sequel, and it's going to be pretty interesting. Let's see here. Gold, Stephen Fitzgerald, that was golden. The Boar Enthusiast. What would be funnier if the guard, seeing Han habitually drinking at the canteen, have a red Solo cup, and he's like, that's his nickname, a red Solo cup. That's why they call me Han Solo. It's a nickname. It'd be really funny if it was a nickname. Anyway, that's what. At that point, Obi-Wan confronts Anakin. They fight. Anakin kind of loses, I suppose, in this instance, because maybe Obi-Wan probably didn't. Because remember when they meet years later, he says, "Now I am the master," and then Obi-Wan's like, "Only a master of evil." So Obi-Wan is still probably very much the mentor figure, still probably very much the superior in skill, and at least Anakin might have more raw natural talent, but Obi-Wan has more of the strategic mind, so he's able to get the high ground and chop him up or something. And then something happens, and Anakin is left in a state of near death, where his body can't really work anymore. And then something happens that separates them. But that's how you get Darth Vader. So so now in this new continuity, Anakin Skywalker was led down the path of hell. Led down the path to hell by his own good intentions and his own drive for good and evil. And he joined the Emperor in taking over the Senate, because Anakin now, under the guise of Darth Vader, sees only corruption in the Republic, and now sees that the dominance of an empire is the best way to keep order, the best way to keep wars from happening, and the best way to keep his friends dying ever again. And that's probably be good reason, a pretty good motivation for Darth Vader to want to crush the rebellion the way he wants to in the original trilogy, because the rebellion spits in the face of his goals and what he wants. Darth Vader wants no more war. He's dark and evil now, but he wants no more war. and he'll do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. If it includes destroying an entire planet, so be it. That's why he wants to stamp out the rebellion so much. And I believe that would have been a better characterization, and that's how thinking backwards works. You start off with Darth Vader, and you figure out how we got to this guy, how we got to this character, and that was a strategy I talked about last time, and that is a strategy we used to come up with the young Anakin character, the one who would become a Darth Vader that we know, more fitting to the Darth Vader that we know. That's how it's done. And next time, now having talked about it, now having used the strategy, next time we'll make characters together for the Keisho Tenketsu story we made in Let's Write a Manga. But I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream here. Thank you everyone for joining me. I had fun. I hope you did too. And I will see you next time, okay? Have a good night, everyone.